Hi AP students. Today I'm just going to be talking to you a little bit about what you can do with your yupo paper in your sketchbook. Remember, you're going to be doing a double page sketchbook, which means that both pages need to interact with each other. They're not two separate pages. Think about images or designs flowing from one page to the other so they look connected. You can see in the Schoology folder today all of the different options that you have for themes. So initially you need to come up with an idea first, and then you can start manipulating your paper. One thing to keep in mind is I actually glued my papers down to the center of my sketchbook. This is not necessary. You could glue these anywhere. You could cut them up and use them in collage-based form. Any way that you wanted to use these in your sketchbook is fine. This is just how I decided to begin, and that's not necessarily the only way to begin. All right, let's start with the simple fact that because this paper is plastic, it can still be moved with water. So if I were to dip my brush into my water cup and I wanted to change something based on an area maybe I didn't like or something, I could actually come in here and still pull up the pigment with water. You can see it's still moving and I'm able to manipulate it still, and that will continue forever until we spray it. So if there's something that you wanted to manipulate or change at this point, you really could still do that with just a little bit of water and a brush. You could also still add and layer watercolor or other wet pigments on top of here as well. Materials that work really well on the top of yupo paper and some that aren't so great. For example, oil pastels are a wonderful choice to layer over top of your yupo paper. I would highly recommend them. They give really solid coverage. You can blend nicely because the paper is so smooth, and because they are oil-based, they will not interact at all with the medium underneath, and they also will not be affected by any sort of water. What works really well are the dual brush markers that you have. Okay. The great thing about these is they still provide excellent amount of coverage. However, they will kind of pull the pigment up from the watercolor that you already put down. One nice thing about these markers is that they are water-based, so if you wanted to blend them with water, you certainly could still do that. But they will also cover right on top of whatever you're working on. Paint markers are another great option for this. Paint markers will provide you with a lot of coverage as well. You can see here where it's starting to pull up the pigment where I have a lot of pigment on. Same with here, it's like actually kind of erasing it. So keep that in mind, that if you're going to use the paint markers, you really want to do it in areas that are clear from pigment, or areas that don't have a ton of pigment. Here, I have a lot of pigment and it doesn't always cover, although it's covering pretty well right there. So paint markers are also a good choice in certain areas. Let's take a look at colored pencils. You can use colored pencils as well. They will cover on top of your pigment and it will slightly tint it while still seeing the value underneath, which is really nice. You can blend with the colored pencils as well. So colored pencils are also a great tool to use on top of yupo paper. Microns or Sharpies are a great tool. You can color right on top of whatever it is that you want to draw. It'll provide perfect coverage and it's nice and smooth. I would highly recommend microns or your Sharpie for drawing on top. And then of course your white pen, I'm not having a lot of luck with. Okay. These white pens have it's a jelly roll pen. You're going to need something if you want to do white with a lot more ink based in it. For this is I'm looking that you pick one of those 6 themes and illustrate it in some way. I'm looking for you to go off the edges of your yupo paper so that this space is also addressed, as well as seeing connections between one page to the other so they look like one conducive artwork and not two separate pages. Right? This is going to be due October 16th, so you do have quite a bit of time to work on it. It is 2 full pages, so I want to extend that time that you have to make sure that you have plenty of time to work on it outside of class. It is also something you could work on potentially in class if you finish something early. You have some free time. One thing to keep in mind is that this pages could be potentially used as your selected works for your AP portfolio. Remember, that has nothing to do with your sustained investigation. Those are just works that you pull 5 of your best works. So I would take the time to really put some thought into this, some experimentation, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with.